Huddle time. Chad Prinky here, as always, along with my good friend, producer, co-host extraordinaire, Stacey
Stop.
Holden. Stacey,
Hey, how do you want us to install this water heater? And my coworker was like, I don't know, install the water heater. Like, why are you even asking me? He's like, well, I don't know if you know, but what you designed, it can't physically fit through the front door of this building.
My class is only 40 minutes. So we have to get this done in 40 minutes. You have to clean up in 40 minutes. And then it also, when you use the miter saw, a lot of kids are scared of the miter saw, and you just see the difference in their confidence when they come in here compared to when they leave. They're excited.
Be announcing a new county that's going to join us in Maryland, so we continue to spread it. And I'll say my peers across the country are starting to take this and adopt this at their local IEC chapters.
Either AI assistant tools, you have AI master builder tools, and then you have kind of a bit of both that are 1 foot in BIM, in current processes, and 1 foot in AI.
Said, Brett, in life, opportunity meets you at your level of preparation.
She said, here's the keys, go forth and do great things.
it's morning huddle time. Good morning, Chad Prinky here with Stacey Holzinger. Stacey, how are you today?
I am doing great.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I was just thinking about, when is it actually going to be spring? And then today happened, and I was like, I think, I'm not getting too far ahead of myself, but Lord, it's beautiful outside here in the mid.
Yeah, it really is. I think we're done with the snow. I don't want to jinx it, but it sure seems like it.
We got a decent amount. Winter actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're shifting gears to hopefully a very long spring. I hate the immediate launch into 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Let's spend some time here in that 60 to 70 zone, please.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of got screwed over last summer because our lake completely dried up here and we could not use it, and it was pretty scary. So I don't want that to happen again.
No, you gotta have rain. We're supposed to have some today, tomorrow. It's all good. It's good. So what Stacey, what cool stuff are you working on right now?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to the MCCEI, and I'll be speaking on their panel about the image in the industry. So I'm excited about that.
So wait, hold on. So talk about what you're talking about. What are you talking about on the panel?
Well, there's a panel of us, mostly marketing folks, PR. We had video, social media, just talking about how we can work together more effectively as a community, construction community, to brand our images better, to recruit people to this industry and solve our workforce challenges.
Got it. So how do we, it's like, what's the face that we are showing to the potential construction audience, to the people who could potentially join this industry, and what's the image that we're showing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, I like it. I think, to me, I'm the wrong guy to ask. I see the images that I've seen for years and like them, but that's the thing. I know that, there's got to be opportunity for positive change in that arena. I'll be interested to hear what comes out of that.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, so Stacey, I want to announce today that we are going to be dropping a different morning huddle kind of product alongside our standard morning huddle product, which is this interview show that's this platform for awesome people who are creating positive change in the industry, where we create this space for them to come on, educate us, educate our audience, have a really interesting and dynamic dialogue. That's what the morning huddle's always been. There's some of the people who are committed listeners have seen different shows where you or I have had other people kind of co-host instead of us, which I think is actually happening next week. But Matt Verderamo, who is a part of our team at Well Built Consulting, Matt is someone who is very passionate about having interesting dialogue and creating a longer form show about things that really just he and I are all fired up about.
Mhm.
So it's called the Well Built series. It's going to be coming out here in the next month. We've actually recorded some shows and gotten a good flavor for. We've gotten some tests done, and we really like
Some
what's happening.
healthy conflict debating going on, which I
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
gonna be
Well, so
exciting.
issues like here, I'll give you a sneak preview. In the first episode, we have a debate about whether project managers should estimate the work that they manage,
Mhm.
and whether there should be a clear divide between the project management team and the estimating team, or whether there is actually some value, depending on your business, in having PMs do their own estimating
Mhm.
and basically own their projects from start to finish. And Matt and I end up disagreeing a fair amount on the topic, and I think showing some different sides of it that are pretty. I don't know. I found it to be highly entertaining to be a part of the conversation, and I sincerely hope that our audience finds it entertaining as well. So and inspiring.
And your approach for this series, you said, is a micro mini series where one of you are taking a side, so there's like healthy debate back and forth.
Yeah, it's there. There's different. No doubt, debate is a central theme of the show, where we actually try to pick issues where he is going to have a different perspective than me. So, for example, just the one thing that I shared with you, but overall, I am of a different generation than Matt, right? And I see things through, I think, a more Gen X lens
Mhm.
than he does, and I think he sees things through a more millennial or even old Z lens. Right? He's like a very old Gen Z
Mhm.
or a very young millennial, and I think that neither of us is he's wrong and I'm right. But but no, I mean he makes an awesome case for a
Yeah,
lot of things that I've already made up my mind about, and
right.
and I think we both come away, uh, you know, maybe showcasing sort of how some of these conversations could and should be happening inside the construction companies,
Yeah.
and that we work with. So.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, thank you. Good. We are too. I can't wait to actually start, officially rolling it out. But today was the announcement, and you can expect more content on that coming up in the next couple of weeks. Let's introduce our guest today. We have Chuck Rakich. Chuck is a friend of mine, friend of Stacy's. Just an all. If you know Chuck, he is an all-around good guy. Chuck is the head of safety at Henley Construction. He's a senior superintendent there. He is Henley Construction is a commercial general contractor. They do a lot of work in the K through 12 school systems in Maryland, as well as community colleges, universities, and also non school work. They're starting to really get a foothold in some private work over on the Eastern Shore and in Maine, Central Maryland as well. And so Chuck is an integral part of their team and a fantastic person to come on and talk about safety. And so, Chuck, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So, Chuck, give us a little, if you wouldn't mind, like couple of minutes on your story. How did you get to where you are, and what got you fired up and involved in safety in the first place?
Um, it's definitely a passion. But before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to all the branches of our armed forces. If any of them are watching today, thank you guys for your service. The country appreciates you. Um,
Agreed.
so was in construction for a while, concrete, things of that nature. Kind of got hurt. Had a friend that was in the safety business, and he kind of said, "Hey, you're not getting any younger. Let's get into safety. Let me get you in here, teach you to, go out and be an inspector, things of that nature, learn what OSHA is, what it's all about, the 1926 standards, kind of learn them inside and out." And what changed my attitude about safety was my first accident investigation that I had to go to. And when I saw that and how it affected more than just right there, it's kind of like when you throw a stone into a body of water, a calm body of water, that rippled effect. Even that rippled effect that's at the edge or the bank when you throw the stone into the center came from that stone. So when that accident happens, it's like an earthquake or something of that nature, you still feel it way out. When I teach OSHA 30s and I talk about this, I mentioned the earthquake that happened here. I forget what year it was, 2011 or whatnot.
Yeah, 11, 12, something like that. Yeah.
So that epicenter was somewhere near DC, Arlington, Virginia, something of that nature. I was actually working in Towson, doing sidewalk on the side of the road. And my truck started bouncing, and I thought guys were messing with me on my bumper, but it ended up that was the earthquake. So that's how far away I was, and I could feel my truck because I had my plans rolled out on the hood. So, same kind of concept. It was that far away, but I still felt the impact. So my first accident investigation is what changed my mind. I saw how it affected different people, different parts of the community, and things of that nature. So I realized then that following the guidelines the best we can and keep our workers safe is definitely something that's needed. And that, again, that's what changed my passion about wanting to change the culture in the industry wide, but especially here at Henley now that I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd ask you more details, though I don't think it would be appropriate. And I can only imagine, the kinds of
offline. We can talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I can only imagine, the if it made that kind of impact. I know I have seen and heard of things that just are so tragic. And so this is the word I'll use, and that I think is the focal point of safety professionals like yourself, is so many are so preventable. There's so many things that don't have to happen.
Right.
And there are certainly freak accidents. There are certainly things that when they happen, it's like man, we might need to write a new code altogether because that's never happened before. But if this is well-worn territory, and if you just want to go home safe and make sure that your people go home safe to their folks, you can do it. You just have to actually focus on it, right?
Correct. And then, everything you have to remember that the 1926 construction standards, you have to remember that we like to say that's the book that was written in blood. It's kind of like a one stop sign, if you will, town, that you have a couple accidents where somebody gets hurt or killed before anything happens. Then they change it to a blinking light. The next thing you know, it's a four-way stop or then a stoplight. But it's not just, hey, somebody calls and complains. There's a track record of issues. So, it's definitely standards that were written because of somebody was hurt or maimed or something of that nature to protect the workers going forward.
Yeah, I have to. I'm sorry, it just triggered something. I have to tell a quick story. It's my first time ever telling this story. I think maybe to anybody in business. This is just something that my family knows. But so growing up where I did in southwestern Pennsylvania, there was a small town called Youngwood, Pennsylvania, that my family had been in for generations. And my grandfather was the constable of Youngwood, and he lobbied for about 40 years for a stoplight in a given area. And exactly what you said, it went from nothing to a stop sign to a four-way stop to eventually a stoplight, because he had seen, as an EMT and a fireman growing up, he had seen so many people lose their lives and get maimed right in that spot. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that anybody knows this, but my family calls it the James Pranky Memorial Stoplight. But that's exactly what happens. So
we're going through a similar thing in our neighborhood. Just there's more and more people moving out here, and they want to stop stop sign, stoplight, I think a stoplight, but there was a bus accident, serious bus accident just 2 weeks ago. We've been asking for it for a while. Now it's gotten to that level. So it's like, I don't know how long these things take or what it takes, but
You're going to bum out a bunch of people who like to drive fast on that road, but save some lives. And I think that's usually the way it is, right? You know, what's the trade-off for safety? The trade-off for safety is often speed. So Chuck, I'm going to ask you, like, and I have a whole bunch of other stuff I want to talk about too, but how do you balance this need for meeting schedule and, you know, driving a project forward, which is obviously everybody's got a hand in that. And how do you balance that with running a really safe job site?
I think the key is to start off pushing everything and not come in after things have been started and become lax. So it's important to keep the same assertiveness, or whatever word I'm looking for, from the beginning of the project. Once it's that old, if you do something for 14 days, it now becomes a habit kind of thing. So like your hard hats, your safety glasses, you stay on everybody from there. But when we see something, say something, stand downs right away on the job site to let everybody know where we stand and how it's going to be. Pre-construction meetings to go over the safety and things of that nature, so we know what the task is and how it impact the schedule. And during those, it's also important for us to point out, you know, if there is an accident or something more severe, such as a fatality or something like that, you can just wad that schedule up and throw it away anyway. So even if it takes a little more time from the beginning to follow everything as safely as you can, in the long run, you're going to save the time, because if something does happen, then that schedule, like I said, goes out the window. Your budget, everything gets shot with an accident and things of that nature.
Man, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a solid mindset from the get-go. And like something that I remind myself when I'm just driving down the road is you don't get anywhere any faster if a cop pulls you over.
Right.
Just take it easy. You know, like you'll be all right, you know, and it's that kind of discipline up front. I like that. Start with the discipline, install it from the get-go. And what you'll find is that everybody kind of normalizes that. Now, I have another question. This is just occurring to me as we go, Chuck, that I got to ask, because I hear this stuff a lot out and around all the contractors that we work with, is what's the difference between real useful safety policy and CYA ridiculousness that doesn't have any backing in science and is really just there to you know make the general contractor's paperwork that much more ironclad?
Well, I don't want to say that any of it is over the top, you know, because they say safety is black and white, even though I feel there's quite a bit of gray in it at times. Yeah. But what seems to be the paperwork to make it more ironclad definitely protects the owner of that company or the workers. So if anything were to happen, the documentation in place for that nature. Some things do seem a little over the top, but it's that same, do it for long enough, it becomes a habit. I remember when AHAs were activity hazard analysis were being pushed pretty heavy. Everybody was against them. Oh, this is more paperwork. Oh, you know, it's going to take us longer. But the companies that have implemented that now, they don't have as many safety incidents because that's reviewed. Actually, their schedule stays on and their budget stays a little bit closer, because it's not only a safety tool, it also becomes a time management, a material management, and like a crew size management tool, all wrapped into one. So it's hard for me to say on the safety side of things that there's too much. It's more the old school mentality of, hey, we've been doing this for 36 years and we never did this. So you're coming in here and trying to get me to do this. You know, you don't know anything. But That's kind of how I look at that. I don't think there's really too much that's there. It just seemed like it at first because you're not used to it. It's change, and everybody fears.
I love it. Thank you. I think that's a great perspective, and something that I will definitely carry forward myself when I run into those types of questions. I also think it's probably fair to say that Henley, you guys are a nice mid-sized general contractor. You're also not some big bureaucratic nightmare of a company to work with, right? You're not a you know, publicly traded, managed from a central location, like somewhere across the world, that kind of stuff. You're a local, regional kind of contractor that is not, probably not prone to writing policy for policy's sake. So you probably personally don't have a lot of exposure to that kind of stuff anyway, even if it does exist, is my point.
Not here. I did when I was doing inspections. So,
yeah, I believe that. I
can think of some of the heavy hitters that you're referring to. That's for sure.
Yep, I believe it. All right, I want to pause for a quick moment. I want to thank a couple of our sponsors, and then we'll get right back at this. I want to thank Katz Abosch. Katz Abosch is a Mid-Atlantic based, right here in the Baltimore D.C. region accounting firm that really has a fantastic practice focused on helping the small to mid-sized contractors, the majority of whom are our listeners and watchers of this show. So thank you, Katz Abosch, for being a part of this. Also want to thank Lawrence Law. Lawrence Law is, kind of the legal complement to a Katz Abosch, in my view. They're a law firm that has that same kind of targeted focus, the same kind of geographic footprint, and they really know how to meet contractors with their day-to-day needs and the rare but important, legal battles that they may face. So if you don't know Lawrence Law, these are folks that you should definitely get in touch with. All right, so Chuck, I wanted to ask about OSHA. I think this is something that in my conversations with you, I've always found that you have maybe the healthiest, most positive mindset I've ever found in the construction industry as it relates to OSHA. How does a project team run a project in a way that when they see OSHA, they're happy and they don't mind seeing OSHA? What are some of the ways that you've seen project teams that embrace that kind of OSHA inspection?
Yeah, usually it's the old freak show at the circus underneath the big top where you put the dancing chicken, where they put his feet underneath the fire, right? That's what happens when somebody says the word OSHA, right? Everybody runs around like that chicken dancing. But
I'm like, man, I have not been to this circus you're referring to, Chuck. This sounds...
well, maybe it's something we saw on TV when we were younger or something of that nature.
Yeah.
The bearded lady and the strong man, right?
The bearded lady.
I got to watch that in today's time. I shouldn't say that, but anyway, everybody needs to realize that everybody has a job to do, and that's kind of the way that I look at it. OSHA doesn't necessarily want to be the cop, if you will. They care about your safety. They care about, everything being done per the standards, kind of like a policeman in that aspect when you're talking about a cop behind you if you're speeding or things of that nature. You just need to remember, like I said, everybody has a job to do, and they're just the enforcer of certain things. But for the most part, there are good cops, bad cops, same things as compliance officers for OSHA. So what you need to do, in my opinion, with your team, and what we try to do here, is make sure we have first and foremost proper signage. Okay. So coming onto the site, we want to have all the signs that we need, and we want to have a sign that tells us that all visitors must report to the construction office. Not just for OSHA compliance officers, but for any visitors to the site. They should be checking in, and there should be a sign-in sheet, a log of who's there, what time, and when they leave. In case there's anything that happens on site, we know they're there, so that if we have to evacuate the site for any reason, we know who's there and when they left and things of that nature. We want to then prepare for them to come by doing routine inspections and then risk assessments on the job site, so that we're familiar with that, we're staying compliant with everything that there is. And I actually have a checklist that I made up here, talks about record keeping, written programs, your safety and health program, posting things, your first aid kits, things of that nature, just to scratch the surface with that. We want to make sure we train our workers, and then we have documentation of all that training. So some of the stuff that we'll need in the trailer are posted on the job board. Actually now, the 1st of February till the end of April, the 300 logs are required. 300A logs are required to be posted on site. That only the 300A. A lot of times I see people post the 300, and really don't want to do that, because that breaks the HIPAA laws, because the 300 has names and things of that nature, where the 300A is just the tally. So we only want to post the A basically the whole month of February, March, and April. If there's any questions, it's on the bottom of the log. It tells you what days it needs posted: February 1st, April 30th. We want to have our emergency contacts posted at the trailer. We want to have directions printed out, both a map and then printed out directions. I like to put 5 copies of each in case there's an incident. They can pull that copy and go, but the nearest hospital and the nearest clinic. So you want it in English and Spanish. You have your OSHA posters, the state that you're working in, and the federal poster. If it's a wage rate job, all that kind of stuff will need posted. You want your first aid kit, your bloodborne pathogens kit, your AEDs in there, and then your programs like we talked about, your HAZCOM programs and your safety manuals. Not only for you as the GC, like us at Henley, any subcontractor that's on site, I need a copy of that in the trailer as well, or in the office, depending on where it is. Want to have your site orientation, have that documented. Any toolbox talks that are performed, you want documentation of that in a folder that's easily accessible. Emergency action plan, a physical map made out of the logistics of the site. If it's the building itself, it'll mark the exits, where the fire extinguishers and things of that nature are, where your office trailer is, where your rally point is in case of an emergency, all that kind of stuff. And then any training logs that you have. Now, the reason this stuff is important is there's kind of an unwritten rule with OSHA. If they come to the site for a routine inspection where the computer pulls up and says, hey, you're going to hit Henley's job site here today, and they'll show up and they'll introduce themselves, show you their credentials and things of that nature. You then have the right to ask for your safety person to be there to walk with them. There's an unwritten rule where they'll give you around an hour or so for that person to get there. So if we have all this documentation that's required already on site, we just say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Compliance Officer, here's all our safety manuals. Here's all our HAZCOM programs. Here's all our training records. Do you mind looking at these and going through these while that's there? If you have that, it's kind of like anything else. They're going to feel a little bit more at ease about your job site, that you're on top of things before they even walk out there.
That's right. That's right. That makes total sense. It's there. What's going on, I can tell with all of this, Chuck, is you want to clearly demonstrate that this is a site that has made safety a priority leading up to this visit. So if you can, if you can almost ask yourself the question, how can we demonstrate to OSHA inspectors that we are a culture of safety, and then run your project that way from the start? So when they show up, you're ready to go.
And another thing that you can do, they have a consultation program. So you can call OSHA and ask them to get enrolled in their consultation program. They'll come out and walk the site with you, and they'll basically tell you everything that's wrong. And they give you a certain amount of time to go through these. Now, other than imminent danger, which is basically where somebody could be, killed or maimed, for them to come on site. If OSHA was to come on site and you are involved in the consultation program with them, you can say, I'm involved in the consultation program for if it's a routine inspection, and say, here's my contact at OSHA. They'll call that person, and then they'll say, yes, this construction site is involved in the consultation program, and they'll leave because they'll only be with them. So it kind of works as a training and a partnership with them, where they just want to be another tool in the toolbox to keep the workers safe and to educate the construction industry.
Yeah. I mean, there's two ways to do it, right? You could try to outrun the law, right? Or you could just join. You can invite them in.
And I will mention that.
What's that?
I said I will mention that since you said that. You don't want to try to outrun them. If they come on and they say they're here for an inspection, they want to look at the site. Remember, everybody does have the right to say, this is my job site, get off. Not recommended, because they'll go to the local courthouse and come back with a warrant and a handful of friends with magnifying glasses, and they will probably make your life miserable. So always want to work with them and be as friendly and as you can. And then if they do walk the site, you want to walk with them. And any picture they take, you want to take a picture, the same picture, so that you have all that. And then if they'll do an opening conference, closing conference, all that stuff. And then when you do get your stuff in the mail, you do want to contest it in writing, whether you're going to contest it or not, because if you don't, then you don't have that option. So you always want to put it out there that, yes, in writing, yes, we're going to contest this. And then you'll have a meeting with the regional director who actually sets the fines. The compliance officers are basically, I don't want to disrespect them by saying they're basically like investigative reporters. And they recommend fines, or they recommend violations, but the regional director is the one who looks at it and says, yes, this is going to be a violation, and they set the fine amount. Right now, I don't remember the number off the top of my head that it just changed to, but a little over $16,000 per offense is the maximum fine currently. It's like 16,130 or something of that nature, but I know it's a little bit over 16. And when I got into safety, it was just under 5,000. So it's really changed a lot. It's really changed a lot.
If you can inflict more pain, that gets people's attention. So
does that depend on the severity of the offense? Like, is there higher fines for? I would assume so.
Yeah, so you have your serious offenses that would be there. Your repeat or imminent danger would basically add a zero, so around 160,000 maximum for those. So what happens, Stacy, if you, let's say I get hit a violation for electrical outlets exposed, where they're live, but the painters took the cover plates off to paint, and we didn't turn and lock the power out, and next thing you know, OSHA comes in, they check the outlet, and it's live. So now we have electrocution, shock hazard. That stays on your record. It's kind of like a driving record. It stays on there for 5 years. So it's our job as an employer, once we get that violation, to train everybody in the company. So anytime within the next 5 years, if we get hit for an open electrical outlet again, it automatically becomes willful or repeat, and it's that maximum $160,000 fine. So it's definitely doesn't seem like, okay, it's a light cover, right? But it's definitely very serious. And it doesn't matter. That was just an example. It doesn't matter what the violation is. If you get hit, it stays on your record for 5 years. You're supposed to train and make sure everybody understands. And then if it happens again within that 5 years, again, it's willful because you knew and you trained everybody, and it's repeat because it happened again. So.
Gotcha.
So I loved one of the things that you've already said in this conversation, which was this idea that if on your team, if you're saying, if you're finding yourself complaining about arduous safety procedures, policies, that the first thing that you ought to do is have a gut check and recognize that, like, that may just be your reaction to something that you haven't done before, or something new, and that doesn't mean that it's a bad protocol. And I really like that as a mindset. I think of that, those mindsets, they really reflect a safety culture, a mentality inside the company toward safety. What advice would you have for companies who want to build a safety culture, not just improve their safety policies, but who really want to get to that place where they have a culture of safety?
I think it needs to come from the top down, from management. Management needs to drive that they're serious about it. Whether they use a third-party safety consultant to come in and start doing things, or if they have an in-house safety, and back that person, come together as a team and back that person. And, as ownership gets involved in the meeting, starts a safety committee, things of that nature, where you show, hey, we're really serious about this. Don't just have those policies that are there just to have them. Actually enforce them, and have the backbone to make it that way. Make sure that you're getting the best safety equipment for them, whether it's glasses, gloves, or the new types of helmets versus hard hats, the helmet protection, things of that nature. Invest in your your workers, but it has to come from the top down, because they need to see the commitment from the person that signs the paycheck, if you will.
I love it. I think that's great advice. There's management being unified, everybody standing behind it. Like, if you have one manager who's permissive, who allows it's a chink in the armor, and it starts to ruin that. It starts to ruin the unified front. So demonstrating the seriousness, and then actual enforcement. Don't just have policies and let it slide, but actually enforce it. You got to create those penalties. You got to make sure that stuff's real for your employees. Otherwise, you're sending a message by not enforcing this stuff. That's awesome. I love that. It's great advice. I want to thank two more sponsors, and then Stacy, get to some questions from you. So I'd like to thank Marsh McLennan Agency. This is an insurance, all things insurance, health, property and casualty, and bonding. And my experience personally is with the bonding folks most closely. And I've just found that their expertise around construction is pretty much unmatched. Anytime I run into one of their clients, who happens to be one of mine, we share the same admiration for their team. And I strongly encourage you reach out to them for your bonding and insurance needs. And Sandy Spring Bank. Sandy Spring Bank is a regional bank based in Maryland that works with small to mid-sized banks, or small to mid-sized companies, and has a fantastic book of contractor business. There's a reason they work with so many contractors. They really do understand the unique demands and cash needs and all that stuff that contractors face. So be in touch with Sandy Spring Bank for your banking needs. Stacy, what questions do we have?
Yeah, so in recent years, I guess cannabis in the workplace is a hot topic because of the new laws and regulations. And how does that work with recreational and then construction and testing and all that?
Well, that's definitely a hot topic. I think Colorado was the first state to legalize, if I'm not mistaken. It was somewhere out there. And OSHA made a stance on it then, that even though it was legal in Colorado, it still wasn't going to be allowed on job sites. Still considered an illegal substance. I know the DOT still has the same policy of, it's not allowed, whether you have a medical marijuana card or not. If you're for example, with them, if you're a CDL driver and you get in an accident in your personal car, not even in your truck, you're going to get popped. And if you come back hot, that goes on against you. May lose your CDL and things of that nature. So same thing with construction sites. Even though it's legal, recreational, there's medical cards and things of that nature, it's still not accepted in the workplace. So if there's an accident, a near miss or something of that nature on the job site, your company's policy should be the first thing that's done once we know the person is okay is that they're tested. That also protects the owner as well. If you come back with a positive test and a workman's comp claim, it holds a little bit weight to protect the people, protect the general contractor or the owner of that. But yeah, it's still not allowed. I have heard that some government agencies have said, even though it's legal in different states, it's not accepted on our bases or on our, within the government. Until every state accepts it, then we may consider, but it'll definitely never be considered until every state. So I'm sure OSHA and the federal government and the military, and they're all kind of on the same lines with that. But I do know that that it's definitely not allowed on the site, and a little bit different with alcohol getting out of your system so quick, where cannabis is like 30 plus days or whatever they say, unless you do the hair follicle test. But there's a big debate. I did it on Saturday and now it's Monday and it's still in my system. I'm not affected by it. So OSHA still looks at it as if you come back hot, you come back hot, and whatever discipline's in your program, that's what happens.
Yeah, I'd say if you are someone who wants to be a recreational marijuana user and you're working in the field, you need to wait until such time as they have tests that can actually check to see, like alcohol, that they can actually check to see if you were under the influence. Because without that test, we're just gonna assume that you were. Correct. Under the influence. You could be like, I didn't do it for 22 days. Well, that's, we have no way of knowing that. And all we do know is, and by the way, I didn't know coming back hot was a term. And I like that. I'm using coming back hot from now on, Chuck. I'm saying, yeah, don't you come back hot.
There you go.
I could see me saying, but I think there's that's if I were in that position, I'd be saying, well, until such point as it can be empirically proven that I was not under the influence, I have to assume that any situation could put me in in the crosshairs there, and the best thing for my family and the best thing for my career is to not use.
And it's tough now because it's so readily available, and there's so much different access, whether it's oils, whether it's vape pens.
It's very difficult to track, trace.
It's not just your traditional skunk. I can smell that. So
you're coining terms here left and right, Chuck. Your traditional skunk is another one of my. Don't you come back hot with that traditional skunk?
There you go. There you go. See, maybe I should patent that for you, Chad. I don't know.
There are certain times when you just come across a topic and a guy talk about it, a person talk about that topic, and it's just comedy gold. So thank you for that. That was awesome. Chuck, where would you steer people for resources if they wanted to learn more, if they wanted to engage more with their team and take some steps today?
What I recommend everybody is to go to OSHA.gov. I like that, Tom. Everybody go to OSHA.gov, and I recommend that everybody signs up for the quick takes. It's a free email service that they have that brings up topics for that time of the year or something that's happening to kind of brush you up. Hey, touch this, or do a toolbox talk on in the wintertime, hypothermia and cold weather working, or in the summer, heat exhaustion or heat stroke and things of that nature. Sometimes in the winter, it talks about slippery road conditions and working around icy things. So it just gives you different topics. Plus, OSHA.gov is kind of your resource to go and search through and ask questions and look things up. There's a lot of useful information there when it comes to dealing with OSHA. It'll talk about being in the consulting program. If you
I was just going to ask, can I? That's where I can sign up for the consultation program.
I'll tell you how. You can go in there and take a look. But generally, it's a phone call or you send an email about it. But yeah, all that stuff is there. They'll have checklists. Goes over trainings, what's needed, and things of that nature, what it is. And of course, there's also online resources there to look up safety standards of your Code of Federal Regulations of the 1926 manual. So awesome. OSHA.gov is a very useful tool to have in your toolbox.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do coming away from this is I love reading. I love history, and I love history that tells us a lot about why we are where we are today. I'm going to look in to see if there's a book about the 1926 construction standards and kind of tells us what the world used to look like before that. I bet you there is. I bet you it's fascinating. Any recommendations on that front, Chuck?
I don't know a book off the top, but
good.
You go to YouTube and look up silica, stop silicosis 1938. There's a video that when the new silica standard came out, there's an actual video that came out in 1938 from the Department of Labor about silica and the damaging effects of you and that it can have on you. And then when the new standards came out, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, they mirror what they talked about in 1938 on that video. It's scary to think, hey, we've known about this since 38 and we're just now doing something in the 20 teens to protect the people. We're now mandating stricter things. So, but if you look that up on YouTube, Stop Silicosis 1938, it'll be maybe a British lady talking in black and white, the old flickering reel type.
Perfect.
Video. But you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chuck. All right, Chuck, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being on with us. It's great to know some of the ideas that you've shared with us today, and also just great to know that there are folks like you out there making sure that we do take care of the workforce that we all rely on. So thank you for your work.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
See you soon.
See ya.
See you guys.
All right, Stace. So what do we have on tap next week? What are we doing?
Let's see. Next week, we're talking about modular construction. And then I think, yes, Tom Hughes is subbing in for me as a guest host. And we're going to talk to Pat McGettigan.
That's awesome. We're going to be talking about MEP modular construction.
Yes.
First off, I love hanging out with Tom. I will miss you, Stacy, but I do love hanging out with Tom. He's a lot of fun and brings a lot to the table when it comes to this type of topic. So I think he'll be leading a lot of the conversation that day. And so yeah, Pat McGettigan, which he works for Faith. Gosh darn it. Faith. I just looked this up. Faith Inc., I think, or Faith Tech Inc. That's what it is. And they are, they're kind of expert in this spot. So we'll be getting a good breakdown of how that works from him. Stacy, I am excited to continue to steer people to our website. We're starting to get a lot more subscribers to the newsletter. We're getting, our download numbers are going crazy. It's pretty exciting stuff to be seeing. And I think the website has helped. So go to the morninghuddleconstructionshow.com. If you are hearing this for the first time, go check that out, sign up for our newsletter, make sure that you're getting visibility into our stuff. It is a simple weekly, here's what last week's show was, here's what this upcoming week's show is, here's some links to resources. It is definitely the least spammy newsletter you've ever received. So please do check that out. And Stacy, is there anything else that you're working on that you want to communicate?
No, but I do want to give a shout out to Hamel Builders. They reached out to me and they actually put our videos in their employee intranet as a resource. So I thought that was really cool. So thank you very much.
I did too. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That was awesome to see.
Idea.
Really cool idea. And just definitely made Stacy and I's day and made us both feel like the stuff that we're doing is, useful resource for contractors, which was always the intent. So, yeah, thanks for remembering to bring that up, Stacy. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Next week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I won't see you next week.
Probably. Yeah.
You'll be in the chat. All right.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. See you soon.